noticed on that, Matt, that maybe a lot of car drivers don't understand how high you actually sit up on a motorcycle. You really have a pretty good view in the seat of that bike.
Yep, considering you are a smaller vehicle, you still have a pretty commanding view of the road.
Now, but I bet you does that give you an advantage in a parking lot?
No, not really. As you can see, driving in a parking lot is pretty tricky. It's very busy, there's lots of traffic everywhere, people backing out of their spots, and also pedestrians going to and from their car. It's always a good idea to go nice and slow, cover the horn and brake in case someone does jump out in front of you or back out in a car. When driving a bike at a really low speed, however, as most motorcyclists will say, it's pretty tricky. The bike isn't very stable, so you really got to pay attention and just take your time getting through.
Well, that's the bikie's worst complaint, is it that four-wheelers and pedestrians just don't see them.
Exactly.
Just don't see them. All right. And this has to do with bikes at a stop sign.
Stop signs require a full stop behind the limit line. If there is no painted limit line, stop where you would expect to see that line or behind the boundary of the intersection as defined by the Highway Traffic Act. At a four-way stop, the vehicle stopping first has the right of way. If two or more vehicles stop at the same time, the vehicle on the right has the right of way.
You know, Matt, one thing that's always frightened me about bikes, you see these guys going through a corner, and I mean, a single stone, it looks like, would upset the bike. What happens when you encounter gravel or slippery roads?
Yeah, when taking a turn from asphalt onto a slippery surface such as gravel, or even just when it rains out and you're crossing painted lines, the only thing you can really do to protect yourself is just slow down in a straight line and turn slowly. Therefore, you keep the bike upright, you're not leaning into the turn, and you'll have the most grip.
Well, eventually, you're going to get off that slippery road and you're going to get onto the expressway. What do we have to see there?
Well, let's check the video and see.
Choose the left tire track on the entry ramp and maintain a 2 to 3 second gap to any vehicle in front. If the traffic is dense and moving fast, adjust speed to get the best spacing possible. Do not exceed the safe ramp speed and accelerate to expressway traffic speed in the acceleration lane. As soon as the following expressway traffic can be seen from the ramp, begin checking the mirrors and left blind spot. Before or as soon as expressway traffic can see the motorcycle, activate the turn signal. Monitor the following traffic and maintain an adequate gap in front. Ensure the turn signal is still on and adjust speed to merge smoothly with the expressway traffic. Blend in with a smooth, gradual movement to the left tire track of the express lane and cancel the signal. Once on the expressway, monitor the traffic continually to the front, rear, and sides. Keep a minimum gap of 2 to 3 seconds in front, and if tailgated, increase the gap. Try to keep space on both sides and avoid riding in the blind spots of other vehicles. Choose the correct tire track and avoid following large vehicles that compromise your vision. Look well ahead, 12 to 15 seconds down the road, to identify potential problems. Maintain a steady speed when possible, within the speed limit, but not unreasonably low. Turn on the signal and check the mirrors before reaching the exit lane. Check the right blind spot if necessary. Enter the exit lane where it begins with a smooth, gradual movement. Turn off the turn signal and maintain speed until completely in the lane. Choose the left tire track and decelerate at a steady rate, but gradual enough to avoid causing traffic from the rear to bunch up. Maintain a 2 to 3 second gap in front and do not exceed the safe ramp speed. Use the brakes to slow down and gear down when appropriate for the speed of the vehicle.
Well, it looks pretty much like what we talked about earlier, Jody, with the car. Is there anything particular about motorcycles that you have to watch on the freeway?
Yeah, there are a couple of differences between the bike and the car. The main thing is getting up to speed, but you want to make yourself as visible as possible, which is all about where you position your motorcycle in the lane. You want to make sure all the motorists see you when you're entering and exiting the highway, so you don't catch them off guard.
And again, visibility is key. And one thing a friend of mine once told me, the reason that football quarterbacks drop back to pass, it isn't that they don't want to get hit. They can't see. Because if you're right behind your offensive lineman, you can't see your receiver, so you drop back to get a better field of vision. So next time you think you're getting smart by pulling in behind a truck, drop back and you can see better.
After deciding to make a lane change, check for a 2 to 3 second gap in front and behind. Check the mirrors and blind spot, and if there is another lane beyond the one you intend to move into, check it also for the possibility of a vehicle moving into your intended spot. Signal, another blind spot check, and smoothly move into the new lane, selecting the tire track that provides the best separation from other vehicles in adjacent lanes. Maintain a 2 to 3 second gap in front and to the rear, and cancel the signal after completing the lane change.
Now again, we've talked earlier in the cars about roadside stops. I guess it's equally true for motorcycles. Do you want to take a rest every couple hours?
It is important to take breaks while riding a motorcycle. It's very fatiguing riding the bike as opposed to in a car where you're protected from all the elements. On a bike, it's windy, it's noisy, and obviously you want to stay 100% focused so you're not caught off guard.
And once again, I bet we've got video.
Check traffic in front and behind before slowing down on the approach to the stop. Signal right before slowing, but not until passing any vehicles waiting to enter from side streets or entrances before the stopping point. Brake at a steady rate and gear down during deceleration when appropriate for the speed of the bike. Just before pulling over, check the right blind spot when necessary. Come to a complete stop without weaving as far as possible off the traveled portion of the road. Do not block any entrance or obstruct traffic. Turn on the four-way flashers if available. Position the bike for kickstand stability. Put the transmission in neutral or turn off the engine. Engage the kick or center stand. Holding the motorcycle steady, put the kick or center stand up and start the engine if necessary. Turn off the four-way flashers if equipped and turn on the left turn signal. Check the mirrors and the blind spot just before pulling away. Cancel the signal once entering the traffic lane while accelerating to traffic speed. Move to the left tire track.
It's important to remember when entering back onto the road that the asphalt's actually a couple inches higher than the gravel shoulder. So when you're on a motorcycle and you only have two wheels to deal with, you've got to be very careful that your angle of approach back onto the road is pretty steep. So your two wheels don't catch on the lip and you end up dumping the bike in the middle of the road.
And I know from personal experience that those things are heavy.
What about carrying a passenger or an extra load on the bike? Do you need to make any adjustments?
Yeah, there's an adjustment in the rear shock that you can make. It's quite easy. When you have a passenger or a heavy load, stiffen up the rear shock so the suspension travel will still be able to handle the load and it won't bottom out over bumps.
Now something that's kind of occurred to me watching all this video of bikes and traffic is how vulnerable you are on a motorcycle. I mean, you're riding at 100 kilometers an hour and a truck is like 3 feet away from you. Isn't that kind of scary?
Yeah, being on a bike, you are a lot more vulnerable because you don't have as much protection, obviously, as in a car. And yeah, things can happen and jump out at you right away. For instance, right here in the video.
So let's take a look. That looked pretty scary, but don't worry folks, that was a setup, but do not attempt this at home. Now Matt, are there any other risk management techniques that you can teach us that help you make a safer way on a motorcycle?
Yeah, there's similarities on the bike, same technique that you use in the car. Like at a large intersection, using the S-turn approach gives you a better line of sight and keeps your bike position nice and straight.
Something to be very careful about. If there's an oncoming vehicle approaching with its signal on, don't assume that it's turning. Wait for confirmation that it actually is making the turn before you pull out and make yours.
Good point. Now, Matt, there's still other things you've got to consider when you're riding that bike.
Whenever crossing over a railway track or streetcar tracks, they're metal and they're slippery. Rubber on steel has a lot less grip than rubber on asphalt, and especially when that steel gets wet. So once again, if you're making any turns, you really got to slow down, don't lean the bike at all, and cross with the biggest angle over those tracks.
And what about that rear crash avoidance thing we talked about in passenger cars?
Yeah, when it comes to rear crash avoidance, the technique is the same as in a car. When you're stopped, you want to be monitoring your mirror as frequently as possible to keep an eye on what's coming up behind you. Keep the bike pointed in a nice straight line, so if something does take place behind you where you have to get out of the way, you can take off very easily. And that's one advantage of a motorcycle, is it is nice and light and it accelerates very quickly. So if you need to, you can get out of there in a big hurry.
Well, to an old guy like me, it all sounds awfully scary, but I take it there are compensations.
The main thing with a motorcycle, as long as you're doing your job and being very focused on what you're doing and aware of what everyone else is doing, it's very enjoyable and safe as long as you know what everyone else is doing around you. It makes it all worthwhile.
I have no choice but to take your word for it. Well, no matter whether you ride or drive, some principles always apply. You have to get trained, you have to be aware, and you have to be sober. We hope that will be obvious. We also hope this video will help you pass your G2 exit exam and make you a fully licensed driver. But remember, training is a lifelong thing. You never, ever will learn it all. Learn something new every day, and you'll be a better driver every day. So go out there, enjoy the road, and keep those eyes out.